Hi, and welcome everyone to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and welcome today. Hi, Susan. And we have a guest
Hi,
today that we will
Lisa.
welcome in a minute. Hi,
We
Susan.
do. Hi, Lisa. It's so nice to see you again this week. I'm Susan Capurso. I'm an end-of-life doula and a legacy specialist. And I know we have a really great guest today, Lisa.
We do. We have Ellen Smiley, who is a financial literacy coach. I have known Ellen for many, many years from my nonprofit organization from way back when, and I knew her when she worked with NEFCU. And she does something that we all need, but especially us who are either single people or people who have lost someone who was our partner in earning income and our partner in trying to make sure that our financial affairs are in order. And I can certainly relate to that, and I bet you can too, Susan, huh?
Before you even introduce Ellen, let me
Yeah.
just say this is such an important topic for people to listen to because really nobody comes knocking on your door. Nobody extends their hand and says, okay, how can I help you now to deal with any financial issues after you've lost a loved one? Nobody does it. And I think, and Ellen might confirm this, that people more often just keep their distance because they don't want to sound like they're butting in or getting involved, or so they leave it up to you to take care of. Nobody questioned me once, not
Yeah.
once. So that
Yes,
just shows me that it's just a touchy topic. So
it
go ahead,
is.
make your introduction, Lisa.
Well, my quickie thing is that when my husband died, I could not afford to be in my house with only one income, and so I got a home equity loan because I didn't know how else to save my house. And the fact was that some people, one person does, all the financial, the bills, etc. We did them together. And now I was lost because my partner wasn't there to do them with me. So I had to figure out, like, what am I going to do? Like, what kind of system could I put in place? And my kids actually helped me put together something that I still use today. So this
Okay.
is such an important topic for all of us.
Introduce Ellen. I'm on the edge of my seat.
There you go. Ellen, why don't you tell us about your background first?
Okay, well, first I'd like to say thanks very much for inviting me to be with you today. I really
Welcome.
appreciate it. And this, as you said, Lisa, this is such a critical piece of information. Susan, you're so right. Nobody comes knocking on your door saying, let me help you with this. And people are left adrift on their own. So going back to 2006, I was working for a local credit union. And part of my responsibilities there was, as part of the community outreach, to go out and speak to groups, all kinds of groups, about financial literacy. I had never heard the term before, so I had to do some research, and it was a really fast and steep learning curve. And I learned a lot, and I was able to convey that information to the various groups that I was presenting to. And in those days, it was mostly high school juniors, high school seniors, getting them ready to go out into the world. It progressed on to teachers groups, union groups, PTAs. There was a wide expanse, but most of those groups were, I would say, 40 and younger. And it's become apparent, I left the credit union in 2013 and started my own consultancy. By the time I left the credit union, I was doing somewhere between 125 and 150 presentations a year.
Wow.
I was really busy with this kind of information. And the more I did it, the more I saw how desperately needed this basic information was for people. What's become apparent over the last few years, as we've all gone through this worldwide trauma of the pandemic, is that many people, too many people, have lost their partners. And that's had not only a tremendous emotional impact, but it's had a financial impact on people as well. They've gone from a two-income household to a one-income household, essentially cutting your income in half or maybe more, because It's not unusual for one partner to be a higher wage earner than the other. And so it might not be half. You might be down to 30% of your income. Or maybe you were the lucky one, and you had the higher income, so it gives you a little bit more wiggle room, but it doesn't let you know what you're supposed to be doing now. It doesn't let you know how to get things in order, how to take control of the bills that the partner was taking care of. And that's a really critical piece, because we stumble around. We get a piece of information here, a piece of information there. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But we need to find some place where we can land solidly and start to take control of the situation. I know, Lisa, in your situation, your kids helped you set up a system that goes back to, for anybody who's old enough to remember this, it's a variation on the old envelope system that my parents lived with. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. So the system that you had set up, which was literally paper file folders.
Yes.
And would you like to say a little bit about that at this point?
Well, the thing is, I had to organize. Part of it is just organizing. So folders were by month, so we could see the months. And then we had all the dates and stuff. So I could, within that month, I could put in the date. So the bill was due, let's pretend the bill was due on Friday the 30th. I knew that a week before, and I put it into a week before on the 7th of that month, that I need. So everything that was in that area, I took out and I paid then at that time. And then I would go to the next week and the next. And so
And
by the way, I used envelope. By the way, we back in the 70s were using envelopes. That's what we did, my partner and I. So isn't it interesting? Now, of course, all the kids have a lot of plastic now and all that. But listen, our age, people in our 50s, 60s, 70s, I mean, we're not just paying bills online. We have paper bills. So
Now, Emily, I just wanted to add one thing in, and I'm sure you're going to give our listeners some tools and tips and the best things that they can do in this situation. But one thing that helped me, well, one thing that really helped me was I was always the one who paid the bills and took care of things. So I felt independent as far as that goes. I was still okay doing that. But something that made it easier for me, and I don't know if this is a suggestion or a tool that you use, I have my one credit card that I use for bills. It's a Discover card, and I've managed to connect it to automatic payments. So in other words, you know what I mean by that, right? So the electric bill, the phone bill, everything comes out and gets paid on the Discover bill every month. I don't even have to really go in, except for one or two things now. And then I just make the one payment on the Discover bill. And it's helped me mentally because I remember being so overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, where was I? I didn't know where I was working. There was so many bills to take care of.
Yeah, I'm actually going to touch on that as we go through this.
Okay.
And I think that for you, I think that was a great solution. One way to get started is literally what Lisa did, is gather all of the bills together and find a system that works for you. Susan, you did the same thing. You did it electronically. Lisa did it with paper. And whichever works for the individual is exactly the right solution to the situation. One of the ways, so what you two did essentially, without even realizing you were doing it, was setting up a budget. You knew how much money you had to work with, and you knew where the money was going to be going to. So Lisa used paper in folders. Susan, you did electronically, putting everything through your Discover card. But what you did in essence was setting up a monthly budget. And that's a really important piece because it gives you a sense of being grounded in reality and gives you a sense of control over what it is that's going on. So you're dealing with the emotional trauma of having lost your partner. You're dealing with this overwhelming pile of must-dos, which is pay your bills. And if you weren't the partner who was paying the bills, it's all new territory for you.
Right.
And so it gives you a sense of having something to hold on to, an anchor. So what I would suggest to people, so let me go into this and say, whatever works for the individual is the perfect solution for that individual. Try the folder system. Try linking your credit card to your bills, if that works. If that doesn't work for you, if you feel like you're not tech savvy enough, or at the moment it's too overwhelming, go back to the very basic. Set up a budget. If you are savvy enough and you have an Excel program on your computer, you can set up a really, really basic Excel spreadsheet. You want to start off with what is your income? You need to know what you're dealing with right from the start. So you need to find out what is your income and what does your income consist of? It could be a salary. It could be a pension. It could be an IRA. It could be 401k. It could be money that came from an insurance policy. You could do what Lisa did, which was a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit. Another suggestion, and again, it depends on the individual circumstance, is maybe take a look at doing a reverse mortgage on the house.
Yeah.
When reverse mortgages were first being popularized, they got a really bad reputation for a really good reason. There was a lot of abuse in that industry. People didn't understand what it was that they were getting into, and it wasn't explained to them. So if we fast forward 20 to 25 years, I'll tell you that the industry has come under very stringent government control. It's a very safe product now. And what it does, and I'm not pushing this, I'm just giving you information. What it does is look at the equity that you have in your home. So if you had a $500,000 mortgage and you've paid off 200,000 of it, and you still have 300,000 left, you've got $200,000 in equity because that's cleared from the mortgage that you could potentially tap into. It's a much simpler process to apply for a reverse mortgage than an initial mortgage or conventional mortgage. And there are licensed reverse mortgage specialists. You can't walk into your local neighborhood bank and say, I want to do a reverse mortgage the way you could do with a conventional mortgage. It doesn't work that way. So you would
Ellen,
need,
we've had one on our show, so there is a video there all about yeah, Tim Kennedy, he's a specialist.
Terrific, terrific. So I don't need to go into any more of this. So people can tap into that if it's something that they think they'd like to look at. Like Lisa did, don't discount the home equity loans or the home equity lines of credit. They can also be lifesavers. Take a look at any source of income that you've got. Don't lose track of anything. Literally make a list of what it is. Salary, IRA, 401k.
Social Security, Social Security.
Social Security, absolutely. Just make a list of all of these things and make sure to include those pieces in this budget that you're going to do. Now, where do you find a budget that you can work with? If, as I said, if you're tech savvy enough to set up a basic Excel spreadsheet, you can do that. You can go online and Google.
Do what? I missed that.
Budget sheet. Budget sheet.
A budget sheet. Okay.
Set up a basic spreadsheet.
Okay.
You can go online, you can Google household budget, and you will find thousands of examples.
Also, if you have Word on your computer, most people do.
Mhm.
I saw that there's one in there, one of the templates. I don't know how good it is. I'm just
Yeah, and
saying.
that depends on which version of Word you have. The older ones
Right.
probably don't have it. The newer ones probably will have it. But
do.
you don't need to get hung up in that, because you're dealing with all of these stresses right now. Maybe digging into something like that is just, you don't have the patience for it, you don't have the head for it, you don't have the heart for it. So an easy way to get around that might be Googling household budget, and you will find literally thousands of examples. Start looking at them, see which one fits your particular situation, and you can change it as you go along. What works now may not work in 6 months.
Yeah.
If you had a household budget with your partner, maybe you want to use the basic structure, but the numbers are going to change because you've lost one of the incomes. So you don't have that piece of it. So sit down in front of your computer, find what you can find, print it out. My suggestion would be, particularly at a sensitive time like this, when you're
Breathing.
breathing, when everything is confusing, when you're looking to find pieces to put into place, don't try to do it online.
Yeah.
Print it out. If you don't have a printer to use, ask a child, ask a friend, go to the library. They've got access there for free. Print it out and use the paper version to at least get yourself started, get yourself over the initial hump of doing this. And make sure that it's got a listing to start with at the top or on the side, income, and list all of your sources of income to make sure that you don't forget about any of them. That way you know how much money you've got at the start of the month. So it gives you an idea of where you can go and paying the money out.
Right, right.
Collect the bills. Put them into folders, put them into a stack on your dining room table, on your desk, it doesn't matter. Go through the bills and separate them. I find that the easiest way to do it is what Lisa did, is to separate them by due date, by month. And if you put them into chronological order by the month, that gives you another step of getting things into some kind of an orderly fashion. And then start filling the information into your budget. If you've got a Visa bill that's due on the 3rd of the month and you've got a payment of $100, fill that in on your budget. Go to the next one. You have a PSEG bill that's due on the 17th of the month. Fill that in. I would suggest for anyone who has not done this, when you've got any kind of a bill that can be broken down into a budget payment plan. So your electric bill, here
Oil.
where I live, heating oil, or your National Grid, your gas bill, your water bill, if that comes on a regular basis, garbage pickup, anything that comes in on a regular basis that needs to be paid, contact the company, explain what happened, and let them know you want to go onto the budget plan. That way you know every month what's going to be due. Plug that into your budget. Your whole purpose here is to give yourself a sense of structure and control.
Control, right?
That's going to help you do it.
It is. It is. How do you deal with that loss of income? You know, you're used to the two incomes. That's how you lived your life. How do you deal with that kind of loss?
You know, Lisa, it's really, really difficult. For some people, it's going to become manageable because they've got the resources in other ways. Other people are going to find it a real struggle. If you've got a home, tap into the equity in your home using one of the methods. Get a home equity loan, a home equity line of credit, look into the reverse mortgage. Now, the difference, many people don't know the difference between like a home equity loan and a home equity line of credit. So a home equity loan is just that. Based on the equity that you have in your house, you get a chunk of money. And normally it runs on a 30-year program. So you've got 10 years to draw from it and 20 years to repay it. A home equity line of credit works differently than a loan. A home equity line of credit literally sets up a line of credit for you that you can draw on when you need it. And you only pay interest on the amount that you've actually used. With the loan, you've got the whole chunk of money, and so you would be paying interest when those payments start on the entire chunk of money. The home equity line of credit, you just pay the interest on what you have used. So if you've got the bulk of it sitting there and you haven't used it, your payments are going to be lower. There are people, I did this myself. We had a lot of, this is going to sound cruel, and I don't mean it to sound uncaring. We had a lot of jewelry that had come down through the family, through the generations. I spoke to all of the extended family and said, look, I've got this stuff. Are you interested in having it? I spoke to every one of the cousins because we're at the age now where we are the older generation. There's nobody in the older generation. For almost every piece of jewelry, people said, no, we're not interested in it. And I went, okay. And this was a hard decision, and it made a very big difference. The decision was, I could hold on to this stuff until I was gone, and then somebody in the family was going to turn around and sell it because nobody was interested in it. So I made the decision to go ahead and sell it. And it wasn't easy because you got the emotional connections to the people who own those pieces. I can close my eyes and still see my grandfather wearing a specific ring. Not a single person in the family was interested in inheriting that ring. I put all of this stuff together. I live near New York City, went into the city to the Diamond District, and I got a very big chunk of money for that jewelry. And that helped a lot. So am I advocating it? No, because there's an emotional attachment to this stuff. But I'm saying to look at every source that you might have. Was there an extra car that's now not going to be driven?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could that be sold? Yeah, just if you're in that kind of a situation, people who have houses are in a little bit better situation because they have home equity they can draw on. If you're living in an apartment and you don't have that available to you, start looking at everything in your life that, as painful as it is, may not be relevant to your life anymore. Maybe you don't need 2 cars.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have a friend who's going through that right now, selling his father's car. And it's got an emotional attachment because for years his father drove that car. But he's not going to be driving it. And so there are many different kinds of resources that we accumulate in our lives that we don't necessarily think of as resources. So when the dust settles and you have a chance to sit down and take a look at this, don't discount anything. Leave yourself open because you can find some help where you least expect it.
You know, and also another tip is, I think if you say you don't work, or you have a part-time job, or you do work but you want to make a little extra income, along with my business, I've always been creative, so I started up a creative product that so easy. It took me, I don't know, an hour to set up an Etsy store. And this little craft that I have on there sells. So during the month, it might be, sometimes it's $500-600 a month. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a couple $100 a month. But you know what? It's always something little, and it's so nice because the notifications Etsy sends you goes cha-ching, cha-ching on your phone. But it's so nice to know that, oh, you know, I'm making a couple extra dollars, even if it's grocery money for the month.
Right.
So that's something to think about if you've ever had a hobby was something that you've done.
That's a great idea, Susan. You know, there are lots of people who are so creative in so many different ways. I work with the young girl, but this would work for older people as well, who comes and helps me work in my garden. You know, maybe you've got a neighbor who needs a ride to the doctor. You know, maybe you have your sister who needs a ride to the grocery store so she could kick in some gas money. But there's ways of finding bits and pieces. There are any number of surveys that you can do online that pay money.
Yeah.
Now you need to be careful and do your research, do your due diligence to make sure that it's legitimate. There are a number of legitimate ones online. You can sit at home and do surveys and get paid for doing that. So
there's also all the remote jobs and all the remote things that you can do, making phone calls and such. And you know what? People need to look at their skills again, because there might be things from the past that they do really well that they just haven't thought of again.
Yeah.
And you can.
And I gotta tell you, my son's girlfriend works full time. She's a social worker, and one day a week, well, right after work until maybe 2 in the morning, she babysits for a woman.
I was just going to say that.
And the money she makes on that day, boy, they pay babysitters a lot differently than when I babysat.
No kidding. No kidding. I have a friend who's doing that. She's raised 5 kids of her own. She has 12 grandchildren. God bless her. And so she's very adept at taking care of children, and a couple of days a week she does babysitting, and that's several $100s a month that she gets for that.
That's right.
So,
nice.
So Lisa, you're right. You need to take another look at your skill set. You know, particularly as we get older, we pick things up as we go through life. Sometimes through trial and error, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we develop different skill sets as we go along. And so definitely take a look at the skill set. You know, you can also look at ways of saving money. So I have a private consultancy, and I work with private clients. And there are lots and lots and lots of tips that I can give to them in terms of ways of not paying so much money. I have a very good friend who pays she has autoimmune diseases. Her medicines are really expensive, even with Medicare. She's got one medicine that costs her $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And that's with her Medicare coverage.
Wow.
I put her onto a website. She's been able to reduce that to $400 a month. So I'm just going to I make no money from this stuff. This is part of the informational aspect of what I do. So for anybody who finds themselves in that kind of a situation, here's a website to look at. Sometimes it's going to have your meds there, adding stuff all the time. It's worth 5 minutes to take a look at the website. It's Cost Plus Drugs, all one word, costplusdrugs.com.
Thank you.
If you're in that kind of a situation, I mean, my friend's saving herself $800 a month.
Wow, that's huge.
It's
wow.
It's massive.
Wow.
So there's lots of ways of working the system so that it's not so expensive for you to be getting on with your new life, finding resources.
I think if you look at your week and you look at what you do and you write down what you do, you'll be surprised. You know, how many times do you go to, get coffee at Starbucks?
Absolutely.
You know, how much are you paying for that? How much are you eating out during the week? Instead of cooking food.
When you go out to work, do you bring your lunch, or do you go to the local deli and spend $20 on a sandwich, chips, and a soda?
Right.
You know, you could spend $5 food shopping, buy all the ingredients for the same sandwich, and save yourself almost $100 a month just by brown bagging it.
Yeah, try and convince 20-something-year-olds on that, and I'll bring them onto your Zoom.
I know, I get it, but they're not the ones who are looking at the loss of an income and looking for ways to fill that gap.
Exactly.
You know, they're just getting started.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we're finished, that we're done. but we're in a different place in life.
We are.
Yeah,
We are.
definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
also asking for help, because so many people like myself, I don't want to ask for help. Okay, but the minute somebody offers, um, but the minute something happens to somebody in my life, I offer to help. And the answer might not always be yes. And I'm talking about when it comes to maybe printing out these sheets or putting that budget sheet together. Sometimes it's overwhelming for some people, and especially after losing somebody in your life, if you never did this before. So there are people around you, even if it's not family, it could be a friend, or it could be somebody at the library or some kind of volunteer that you can get to help, but you have to ask. You have
right.
to ask for it.
You're right. You're right. And as we get older, we're accustomed to being independent. And so breaking down that barrier, that one step to say, please, I need help, it's sometimes not easy for people.
People want to
Really
help.
hard.
But people,
Really hard after losing somebody because you already feel so vulnerable.
yeah,
Extra hard.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And in my experience, people are very willing to help. They don't know what to offer
Right,
to do,
right.
so they're
Right.
waiting for that piece of direction from you, essentially.
Exactly. Because they don't want to butt in. They don't want to overstep. So they say, well, I'm here if you need me.
Right.
Right,
That's not
exactly
helping.
right.
I want to ask about something because when the partner dies, we're all confused about what to do now with some of these bills. So their credit versus my credit versus, can you help me out a little bit with that? Like who owes what?
Sure.
Do I owe? Help me out with that a little bit.
So there are various thoughts on this. Anything where you have been joint on that account, whether it's um, your oil bill or your electric bill or a credit card or a mortgage, if both of your names are on that contract, you are responsible to pay those bills.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean that your credit information is the same as your partner's, because there's lots of different factors that come into play. So when I work with private clients, I will tell them I'm working with somebody right now, where we're working on rebuilding their credit after having come through a bankruptcy. They each have their own credit history. They each have their own credit score. So when we went into it, looked to see where they were at, there were big differences.
Mm.
Even though they were married for a long time and they are joint on a number of different kinds of bills, there were very different results. So if you are not a co-signer on that particular bill, most people would say, call whoever it is and say, I'm sorry, so-and-so has passed away and there's no money to pay this bill. And the companies might fuss a little bit, but eventually they just eat it. They accept it as a business law.
You're not legally responsible for
Correct.
their debt. Is that okay?
That is correct. If your name is on whatever it is, you are totally legally responsible.
Yes.
And by the way, that goes, put it in the opposite direction. You have a child who wants you to co-sign for a car loan. If that child defaults for any reason, guess who's responsible for that car loan?
Yeah, you are. Yep. Yep.
So that goes both ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That's helpful.
That was great. That was great information.
Yeah, very helpful. Yeah. Okay. Other tips helping people try to navigate this difficult time, especially finances. It's hard, really hard. Any other tips that are helpful to people to figure out how to do this?
Yeah. So I can give you examples from my own life. I needed to find a way to cut down on the monthly expenses. And so it was my choice, and I understand this is not going to work for everybody, And you have to understand, I'm on budget billing for many of the different bills. My choice was to take a look at how I use heat in my house in the winter. So we have oil heat. We don't know what happens with oil prices. They're up, they're down, they're in between, they're all over the place. So my decision last winter, was to not put the thermostat up to 72. I put the thermostat at 64.
Oh.
And I won't tell you any lies. I needed an extra sweater. I needed an extra pair of socks. And I dropped my monthly budget billing for my oil delivery from $433 a month to $280 a month.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
I did the same thing with the electric bill. If I'm not in a room, there's not a light on.
Yep.
Only run the dishwasher when it's full and run it outside of the peak hours. So the peak hours are 3 in the afternoon to 7 at night. Run the dishwasher after 7 at night
I
or
didn't know that.
morning.
I didn't even.
It costs you less. I bought a little countertop oven. I almost never use my big oven now. Anything that has a heating element in it costs you money with your electricity. So I use the countertop oven for almost all of my cooking now. I can roast a chicken, I can stick in baked potato, I can do a casserole, I can do bread, I can do all of that in the countertop oven, and it uses a minuscule amount of electric compared to the big oven. I still use the stove, I'm doing a pot or frying something up. But the use of my big appliance has gone down dramatically. Run your clothes dryer outside of the peak hours. Don't do it between 3 and 7. Again, it's a heating element. Any way you can find to cut down in that way. My bill went from $189 a month to $80 a month.
Wow.
So I picked up another $110 a month there. So between just cutting back on the heating usage and the electric, it came to almost $400.
Wow. A month.
Wow.
Wow. That's tremendous.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big difference. I'm a big reader. I don't buy books anymore. That's what the library is for. I could go into, well, now if you can find one, Barnes and Noble, and easily spend $50 on books. That's what the library is for. I rarely go to the movies. Even with the senior discount, you go to the movies once a week, you're talking about $50, $60. I have a Netflix subscription for $10 a month. And there is tons and tons and tons of stuff there. Another clue, another hint. If you shop on Amazon, if you shop anywhere online, take your credit card number out of it. If you have to enter your credit card information, your name, your credit card information, the expiration date, the security code, every time you make a purchase, you're going to stop and think about what it is am I buying. It just gives you that momentary pause. You'll probably find that you're buying less online. If you can't stop using your credit cards. I know somebody who is addicted to her credit cards. It's the first thing she whips out when she walks into the place. Take your credit cards. Don't cut them up. Do not cut them up.
Yeah.
Take your credit cards. Put them into like a Chinese soup container. Fill it up with water. Stick it into the back of the freezer. So they're still there if you've got an emergency and you need them, but it's not so easy to get to them. You'd be amazed at how much money you can save with just these little steps. And
This is true.
If you've lost half of the household income, every little step that you can take is going to put you into a better position.
Yeah.
And this is how I paid off. I paid off all my credit cards. I just have one now. And that was hard. And I've done it over the last year. but I focused on it and I got rid of all the little debt. So now instead of carrying around the cards, just like you said, they're in a little box, they're hidden,
Yep.
and you know, and I have one for emergency purposes that I carry in my wallet just to feel safe,
Right.
you know, that safety net, right? But then, you know, you might use it once or twice on little things here and there, and then pay it off, put it away, maybe take another one. And that's a good way to build your credit as well.
That's a great way to build your credit, and it's also um, a great way to make sure that you don't get yourself into another hole.
Right.
You're dealing with getting yourself out of a hole. You don't want to get back into it. So here's a little tip. The difference between a credit card and a debit card. They look the same. Very, very different animals. So a credit card is a type of loan. Some company is going to allow you to use their money, and they're going to charge you interest for using their money, and you need to pay it back.
Right.
A debit card is linked to one of your accounts, usually a checking account. It could be a savings account. And every time you use it, you are using your own money. You are taking money out of your own account to make that purchase.
Right. But how about, Ellen, what if my TD Bank can be a credit or I can pay debit? And I never understand the difference. And I say to myself, well, I don't really want to sign, so I'll just punch in my code.
Mhm.
But what should I be saying when I'm out at the store?
It should, on your debit card, it should say debit. Does it say both from TD? Does
Yes.
it say credit and debit?
Yeah, it is a credit and debit card.
Then when you make your purchase, if you want to use it as a credit card, you need to indicate that you want to use it as a credit card.
Right,
If
I
you want to
understand.
use it as a debit card, then you need to indicate that you want to use it as a debit card.
Debit card, the
understand
money's
that.
there and the money comes
But
out
which,
immediately.
okay, but this is what I'm asking. If I hit credit, the only difference at the register is now I have to sign that little piece of paper. But it's not credit like my Discover card because they're taking it right out of my account
They're using
anyway.
it as a debit.
So I
Then
don't
they're using it as a
understand.
debit card and not a
Then you're
credit
using it as a
card.
debit. Debit comes out immediately. The money's there and it's coming out. A credit
Right.
is like a loan. Next month, you're going to get the bill for it.
No, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. But you're not hearing what I'm saying, which is that your TD Bank card I can use as a Visa credit card or debit and put my code in. So they'll ask me every single time with my
Mhm.
TD card, is this credit or is it debit?
Right,
And I have to choose.
right.
Okay, so I don't understand what the choice is because it's coming out of my account right away anyway. So to me, it's all debit.
If you're using it as a credit card, it does not come out of your account.
Correct. Correct.
You will get a
You have,
bill
you have,
saying that you charged
No,
whatever.
no.
that's not a credit card. A credit card is a loan. It's a temporary loan and you're going to get billed
I
for it.
understand. I understand. I have credit cards. I know the difference and I know
Okay.
what using a debit card is.
Okay.
But they still, with the TD Bank card, they still will ask everywhere I go, credit or debit.
Then if it's coming out of your account, regardless of what they're asking you, they're running it as a debit card.
Correct. Correct.
Even when I press credit
Apparently so.
and sign. Yes.
Apparently so. They're using
So that's
it as
why
a
I just
debit
don't
card.
get the why are they giving me that choice every transaction I make?
I don't know.
I'd go to TD
Yeah.
Bank and ask them about this card.
I would
Really?
do that. I would do that.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're looking at making a large purchase, you may not want that money coming out of your account. You may
Yeah.
want to use it as a credit card and see the bill come in every month so you can pay it off.
Of course,
Right.
of course. So I know the difference there, but it's actually, I don't know, it's just a silly thing that I was just always curious about because I can pay it either way they print it out and I sign my name on it, or I can put in my 4-digit code on
And
every transaction. And then people
apparently-
listening that know what I mean.
Apparently, they're not listening to you because they're running it every time as a debit card. If that money is
That's right.
your account, regardless of
Yes.
whether you're signing for it or punching
Yeah, there's
your
no
code,
payments on
they're
that,
running
right?
it as a debit card.
That's right.
I know,
So
silly.
you need to check with PD and find out how they're working this, or if there's another step that you need to do to make sure that it runs as a credit card and not a
Well, there
debit.
is. I do know for a fact that they have another credit card. They have a credit card,
Right, they do, yes.
that I just never signed up for. But
Okay.
I was just curious about the credit and debit thing. But let's skip that now because it doesn't matter.
Okay.
These are great, really, these are great tips and great recommendations, especially for people who are in our position. Very difficult. It's a huge adjustment.
Yeah,
You're living a certain way and you're doing certain things, and now all of a sudden everything is just different.
it's all changed. It's all changed. It's different.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Now, if
It's
somebody watching today, Ellen, if somebody wanted personal assistance and didn't want to go on their own and don't want to ask a family member and give out their information to anybody that they know, could they call you?
absolutely. I'll give you the information. I have private clients that I work with, and I'll say right up front, I do not do the work for my clients. We work together, and I teach them the skills that they need. I give them the tools they need to move forward so that they know how to take care of themselves going on in life.
Do you meet with them once or several times or weekly or something?
It depends on the individual situation. I have one client that I'm working with right now. I meet with them every week. And there are other people where it's one session. They've got a very specific question, and that's the answer that they're looking for. And so it's a one session sit down with them, and they're happy with whatever it is that's happened.
So your contact information. Go ahead, Ellen.
So I can give you my contact information. My name is Ellen Smiley, and my email is FinLitCoach, like financial literacy coach, FinLitCoach@AOL.com. And my phone is 516-659-1186. I'm in New York, so it's the Eastern time zone, whether it's standard or daylight savings. So again, my email is FinLitCoach, FinLitCoach@AOL.com. And my phone is 516-659-1186.
Excellent. Now, what if somebody was out of state? Could you work with them?
I can. Yeah.
You work over Zoom?
Do like a Zoom or something with them?
It could be a phone session. Very often it's phone sessions work really well.
Good to know.
Because I can email information to them and we work through it together. And sometimes that's more effective than a Zoom, because with the Zoom, you're looking at the screen rather than what's sitting in front of you.
Right. Right.
So yeah, working with somebody out of state is not a problem.
Great. Good to know.
Very
Giving
good.
us
And
a
are you
lot of
here
great
on Long
tips.
Island? Are you here on Long Island, Ellen?
I am on Long Island, yeah.
Okay. And are you in an office, or do you go to people's houses, or no?
It depends on the situation. I have an office that I can use. There are times when I go to people's homes. I have a couple of people that I've worked with who were housebound. They had physical challenges, so they were pretty much housebound. And so I'll go to them in that kind of a situation. I do have an office that I can use. And as I said, there are times when it's a phone session, and that works very well too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great for people to know.
Ellen,
Okay.
all these things been so important to people. It's such a difficult time, and trying to break it down and offer support, especially financial. Of all the things to
What's
worry
your
about.
number one biggest tip? What's your number one biggest tip that you want to give somebody that's just completely overwhelmed and they don't know where to turn?
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mm.
Really. I mean, there's all kinds of like mechanical things or organizational things that can be done. But when you're in that state of deep grief, deep mourning, getting your head wrapped around that stuff, it's just not an easy process. Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're embarrassed, you don't want your kids to know what's going on. You don't want your relatives to know what's going on.
Right.
Is there a pastor? Is there a rabbi? Is there a priest that you can go to ask for help? Very often, religious houses have service organizations attached to them. The local libraries are a great resource for help. Don't be afraid. Contact AARP. They deal with seniors all the time.
Yeah, that's great. Great idea.
They have resources that people can call on. And then there are people like me. You know, I have to say, I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of different kinds of situations, and I tell them two things. The first two things I tell them. Number one, this is a no judgment zone. It doesn't matter what happened before. We're going forward from this time. This is a no judgment zone. The second thing is you've got to be honest with yourself, because this is your journey. This is your process. I'm just here to help you along with it. I will teach you what you need to know. I will give you the tools that you need to go forward. Those are the only two requirements that I have.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And with grieving, with grief, and you know that it doesn't go away in a week. And for some people, it's more than weeks and more than months, and it can be years. So it's okay to put things off for a little bit. Allow yourself those weeks or that month, but when it comes to your finances, we can't wait 2 months or 3 months to get to it, and 4 months, because you're going to be in a hole that you may not be able to get yourself out of.
Not only that, but here's probably the last tip. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call whoever has sent you that bill and explain what happened. My nephew passed away very unexpectedly in August. He and his wife had literally the week before signed a contract on a timeshare. Now, I don't know if you know anything about timeshares.
I do.
Okay, getting out of them is as close to impossible as you can possibly.
Just like a car, you can't give it back the next day.
Exactly. So I said to her, call them. She got a statement that the first payment was due. She said, I just lost my husband. I work part-time. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Call them. Tell them what happened. And she did. They canceled the contract.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that that's going to happen with every single bill, but let them know that there has been a dramatic change in your life. And so what had happened previously may be different going forward. Would you please work with me?
Right.
Another way of asking for help. And many, many times they'll say yes.
That's a great suggestion. You know,
Very good. Very good.
Makes people more human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Ellen, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was really enlightening. I love when I learn things from our guests, and you gave us a lot of good tips. Just give us your phone number one more time.
It's area code 516-659-1186. And my email once more is finlitcoach, FINLITCOACH at AOL.com. And if I was able to help any of the viewers, that just absolutely makes my day.
And that's who Ellen is.
Thank you.
And that's who you've been all these years, Ellen.
Lisa,
somebody who cares about
a lot
people.
of years.
I love your last name, by the way. My first
me too.
boyfriend, that was my nickname from my first
Oh, is that
boyfriend.
right?
He called me that. So
And
when
that
I
was
saw
my
your last
nickname.
name,
That's really weird. Look at us. That was my nickname growing up.
Oh,
I never
right?
told you that, Ellen.
You never told me that.
No, that's really cool. Look at
And here
us.
we are, the free Smiley.
That's
That's so
really
funny.
nice. Thank you so
Perfect.
much, Ellen. This has been really informative. and really great
Yeah.
opportunity to
It's
give
been my
information.
pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
So please like our page, follow our page so you see the upcoming videos, but more importantly, share with somebody who may need it most at this particular
Yeah.
time. And it was so nice getting together again. Thank you again for joining us. And Lisa, I will see you next week.
Sounds great. Take care and thanks again.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.